Sunday evening, and instead of relaxing, you're tightening. The week is done. Most people are winding down, watching something, talking to someone, letting the weekend finish itself quietly. You're opening a spreadsheet, or an app, or a notebook. Whatever your system is, and you have a system, it comes out around this time. You go through the week's transactions. You categorize. You compare actual to planned. Maybe you adjust a category that went over. Maybe you move a small amount from one line to another to make the totals behave. When it balances, there's a feeling. Not quite satisfaction. Something closer to relief. A brief unlocking of a tension that was running underneath all week. Missing a category doesn't feel like data anymore. It feels like failure. You built that system so you could feel free, but the relief only comes from the system, which means the system isn't giving you freedom. The system is what you need relief from. That's not a small thing. That's the entire problem. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how that happened, how a tool you built to serve you quietly became the thing running you, and what that shift has been costing you in ways that don't show up in any of the categories you track. What you'll see clearly by the end is that the budget was never the problem. What happened to your relationship with the budget is. There's a specific, traceable moment when a financial tool stops being something you use and starts being something you answer to. Once you can see that moment, you can see the whole pattern, and the pattern, named clearly, loses most of its power.
The first thing to say is that building the system was the right call. You made a deliberate decision to put a framework around your finances. You tracked, you adjusted. The budget produced something real: visibility, control, a period where money felt finally manageable. That period is not the problem. The problem is what happens after. What happens when the system stops being a tool and starts being a standard? When it stops being something you consult and becomes something you are accountable to? When missing a category target feels less like a data point and more like a verdict? When the Sunday evening check-in stops being a practice you chose and starts being an obligation you couldn't imagine skipping? That shift happened so gradually that most people never registered it as a shift at all. It just became how things are. The budget is how you manage money. Managing money means maintaining the budget. Maintaining the budget means the Sunday ritual, the category tracking, the particular anxiety that runs in the background whenever an unexpected expense appears and you have to figure out where to absorb it. That anxiety is not a sign the system is working. It's a sign the system has changed what it is. Here is what the budget was supposed to do, stated plainly. Create enough clarity about where money goes that decisions become easier and anxiety decreases. That was the function. Not to track perfectly, not to maintain zero variance, not to account for every transaction with surgical precision, to produce enough information that you could move through your financial life with less friction, not more. Here is what happens instead for a specific subset of people who build these systems carefully and maintain them seriously. The tracking produces information. The information produces awareness. The awareness produces a new set of things to monitor. The monitoring creates a habit of attention that over time becomes difficult to switch off. And the difficult to switch off attention running over a financial life that is always imperfect, always slightly over in some category, always containing something unplanned, produces a chronic low-grade vigilance that feels nothing like the ease the budget was supposed to create. The budget was supposed to answer the question, "Am I okay?" And for a time it did. But a system that is consulted frequently enough eventually stops answering the question and starts generating it. The question is no longer there before the check-in and resolved after. The question is always there. The check-in is just the scheduled version of an anxiety that now runs continuously. The tool that was supposed to give you control became the thing you can't stop trying to control.
The mechanism has a specific shape, and it begins with something that is genuinely useful, the discovery that having a system reduces uncertainty. When the budget first works, when the categories clarify, when the totals are visible, when the anxiety about not knowing gives way to the clarity of actually knowing, the brain registers this. It records the association. The system produces safety. Specifically, the act of maintaining the system produces safety, not the state of being financially stable, the ongoing activity of tracking, monitoring, and controlling. And here is where the mechanism turns. Safety that is produced by an activity rather than a state is fragile by design, because the activity has to keep happening. The moment the tracking stops, the safety it was generating stops with it, which means that not tracking, skipping a week, letting a category go unreviewed, having a month where you didn't update the spreadsheet, stops feeling like a simple lapse and starts feeling like danger. The safety is contingent on the maintenance, so the maintenance becomes non-negotiable. And once the maintenance is non-negotiable, something has reversed. The person is no longer using the budget as a tool. The budget is using the person as an operator. It requires regular input. It generates anxiety when the input is delayed. It produces a verdict on the person's behavior that carries real emotional weight. It has rules, and deviating from the rules produces a specific internal response that feels less like data and more like failure. You're not managing money anymore. You're maintaining a system that manages you. The budget has become a moral system. This is the turn that almost nobody sees because it happens at the exact point where diligence and compulsion start to look identical from the outside. A person who maintains their budget rigidly looks from every external angle like someone doing exactly the right thing. The rigor is praised. The tracking is the behavior that financial advice uniformly recommends. There is no signal from anywhere in the environment that the system has crossed from tool to cage. So the person keeps maintaining it, and the cage keeps fitting a little more closely. And the original question, "Am I okay?" which the budget was supposed to answer once and stop asking, runs continuously just underneath the surface, generating the very anxiety it was built to resolve. You didn't fail to budget correctly. You succeeded so completely that the budget stopped being yours. The loop runs like this. An unexpected expense appears. Before the expense is even fully processed, a second problem has already generated itself. Where does this go in the system? Which category absorbs it? What does this do to the monthly total? The expense is real and manageable. The system problem it creates is, in some cases, more stressful than the expense itself. And the stress is not about money. It's about the system being disrupted, the cage having its bars rattled. This is the kind of pattern smart money sabotage is here to make visible. The places where a serious, intelligent person's most careful financial behavior quietly turns against them. Not because they did something wrong, because they did something right past the point where it helped. This is not a dramatic pattern. It lives in the ordinary texture of weeks. There's the person who declined something, a dinner, a weekend trip, something spontaneous that would have required spending outside the plan, not because they couldn't afford it. They could. The money was there. But it wasn't in the right category, and reallocating mid-month felt like a violation of something. So they said no. And afterward, sitting with the choice, the feeling wasn't the clean satisfaction of discipline. It was something closer to resentment, not at the person who asked, at the system that made the answer feel predetermined. There's the person whose partner spends differently, not carelessly. Their partner is also responsible, also reasonable about money, but with a different relationship to tracking. Their partner doesn't need the categories to feel okay. Their partner can spend on something unplanned and simply absorb it and move on, without the need to locate it in a framework first. And watching someone navigate money without the machinery, produces something this person can't quite name. Not jealousy. Something more like, why does it have to be this hard for me? Why does every purchase require this much processing? There's the person who upgraded their financial tracking software, moved to a more sophisticated tool, maybe something like Quicken Classic Premier, or a connected platform that automatically categorizes and reconciles, and found that the upgrade produced not relief, but a new layer of things to verify. The automation introduced edge cases. The edge cases required decisions. The decisions required rules. The rules required maintenance. The system grew larger and more demanding at exactly the moment it was supposed to get easier to manage. And then there is the version that is the least visible and the most costly. A couple genuinely doing well, 2 incomes, real savings, no serious financial problem. And one of them, the one who maintains the system, is, in ways they haven't fully articulated, not available, not absent, but there's a background process running. At dinner, they're calculating. On holiday, they're tracking. During a conversation about something that has nothing to do with money, a part of them is doing something financial. The system doesn't stop when the laptop closes. It has become how they relate to time, to spending, to the future. Their partner doesn't say anything directly, because what would they say? You manage money better than anyone I know. That's true. And the person running the system is less present, less free, less able to just be somewhere without the system also being there than anyone who knows their finances would expect. If you've sat through a dinner or a holiday with the budget still running in the background, not because anything was wrong, just because it doesn't switch off, leave a comment. That experience is more common than it gets described. The goal was never to think about money less. It was to worry about it less. Those aren't the same thing.
The cost of this pattern is real, and it accumulates in areas that no budget category captures. The most direct cost is in the decisions that don't get made. A budget that has become a moral system creates a particular kind of financial paralysis around anything that doesn't fit cleanly inside the existing framework. Opportunities that require flexibility, an investment that would mean temporarily disrupting the categories, a spending decision that would require trusting an instinct rather than consulting a plan, become disproportionately difficult. The system was supposed to make decisions easier. Instead, it has created a new class of decisions the person cannot make with anxiety, the ones the system didn't account for. There's a deeper cost in the relationship with money itself. Someone who has been managing their finances through a system of control for years develops a particular quality of engagement with every financial transaction. Spending is never quite neutral. Every purchase is, consciously or not, positioned against the framework. This is not discipline. Discipline is a choice applied in the moment. This is something more automatic, a constant background process that evaluates, categorizes, and produces a verdict on spending before the spending is even finished. The Remarkable 2 paper tablet sits on the desk of more than a few people running this pattern, a premium tool for capturing, organizing, and refining the notes and financial plans that never quite stop needing to be refined. Not because the tool is the problem, because what drives the purchase is the belief that a better system, a cleaner capture, a more organized framework will finally produce the feeling of control that the current system keeps almost delivering. The cost in relationships is quieter and probably the most significant. A person whose sense of financial safety is contingent on system maintenance will unconsciously bring that requirement into shared financial life. What looks like thoroughness from inside the system looks from the partner's side like an inability to relax about money even when relaxing is warranted. The budget conversations that should take 20 minutes take 2 hours. The spontaneous decisions that other couples make in a parking lot require a category consultation first.
Over time, the partner, who may have different but equally valid ways of relating to financial decisions, begins to disengage, not from the finances, from the conversation about them. It becomes easier to let the system person handle it than to engage with a framework that never seems to produce a moment of actual ease. And the long-term cost that runs underneath all the others. The feeling the budget was built to produce, the feeling that money is handled, that the situation is under control, that it's okay to stop thinking about it and just live, keeps being one refinement away. One more category, one more month of clean data, one more version of the system that finally captures everything. The tools keep improving. Platforms like Monarch Money offer more integration, more visibility, more sophisticated tracking than anything available a decade ago. And the person who needs the system to produce peace finds with each upgrade that the peace is still adjacent, not in the current system, but visible in the next one. The system grows, the freedom doesn't.
Think about the last time you spent money on something without thinking about the budget first. Not a small thing, a coffee, a transit fare, something that actually cost something. Where the money came from mattered. Where it was going to be categorized mattered. Now, think about whether the spending itself, the thing you bought, the experience, the decision, got your full attention, or whether part of you was already somewhere else, processing it, locating it, absorbing it into the framework. Notice what that means about who is in charge, you or the system. Skipping your budget update for a week produces something that feels like anxiety, not just a gap in data. The discomfort is not about the money, it's about the system being unmaintained. You have declined to spend on something you could clearly afford, because it didn't fit the plan for the month. The category was the obstacle, not the money. When an unexpected expense appears, there are two separate stress responses, one for the expense itself and one for where it goes in the system. The second one is sometimes bigger than the first. You have thought about, researched, or purchased a more sophisticated financial tracking tool in the belief that a better system would finally produce the ease the current one hasn't. The new system is also something you maintain. There are people in your life who manage money with less structure than you and seem less anxious about it. You have a complicated response to this. Partly you don't trust their situation, partly you genuinely don't understand how they do it. The budget has opinions about your life. It has produced decisions for you that you didn't consciously make, places you didn't go, things you didn't do, moments that were trimmed before they could fully form because the category said no first. You cannot clearly remember the last time you spent something and felt fully okay about it in the moment. Not okay in retrospect after the reconciliation, okay while it was happening.
None of these describes someone who is bad with money. Every single one describes someone who's good with money in a way that has outgrown the life it was supposed to serve. Control that cannot be set down is not control. It's dependency wearing the right clothes. What changes when you can see the system as a system? Something you built, something that does a job, something that has a scope and a limit, rather than as the structure of your financial identity. The tracking is not the problem. Having a framework is not the problem. Knowing where money goes is genuinely useful information, and the decision to create that visibility was the right decision. None of that goes away. What becomes available once you can see the mechanism is the question of what the system is actually for. If it's for producing peace, for creating enough clarity about the financial situation that you can stop thinking about it and actually live, then the test of whether the system is working is not whether the categories balance. The test is whether peace is being produced. And if the honest answer is that the system produces temporary relief but not sustained ease, that the categories balance but the background process never stops, that the tracking is more rigorous than it has ever been and the anxiety is roughly where it always was, if that's the honest answer, then the system is not doing the job it was built to do. It has become the job. A budget that is working is one you barely think about. If you're thinking about it constantly, it stopped working a long time ago. That reframe is uncomfortable because it runs against everything the financial advice ecosystem says. Track more, be more precise, get a better system. The assumption is always that more rigor produces more peace, and if peace hasn't arrived yet, the problem is insufficient rigor. But for a specific kind of person, and if you've recognized yourself in any part of this, you may be that person. The rigor is not the path to peace. The rigor is the thing preventing it. The system, maintained at the level of attention it currently demands, is occupying the exact space where ease was supposed to live. Seeing this clearly does not mean abandoning the structure. It means recognizing that the structure was always supposed to serve the life, not substitute for it, and asking, honestly, whether it still does.
You built something real. The discipline it took to create and maintain a financial system, to look at the numbers clearly and make deliberate decisions, that effort was real. The financial outcomes on the other side of it are real. That is yours. Here is what this video is not going to do. It is not going to tell you to simplify your system, or track less, or let go of structure. You already know what you need to change, if anything needs to change. You don't need another framework for that. What it is going to leave you with is a single observation. Next Sunday evening, when the spreadsheet opens, just notice what happens in your body in the moment before you start entering numbers. Not what the numbers say, what you feel before they appear. That feeling is the answer to every question this video asked.